For a moment, imagine your country depends, truly depends, on vital goods. Oil to keep the lights on, grain to feed millions, critical minerals to power the technologies of tomorrow. Then one day, prices spike, shipments stall, and the trading partner you've relied on for decades? They turn protectionist, slapping tariffs like it's a game of economic poker. High stakes, no warning. Now ask yourself, where do you turn? For 10 major nations from Europe to Asia, the answer is no longer the United States. It's Canada. Quiet, steady, overlooked Canada. But why? Because trade is shifting, alliances are cracking, and in a world growing more unpredictable by the day, countries are recalibrating, fast. What once felt stable no longer is. Tariffs, political volatility, and supply chain shocks are pushing longtime allies to rethink everything. And Canada? It's offering something rare. Predictability, transparent policies, strategic resources, and crucially, trust. From Germany's EV supply chains to South Korea's tech investments, from Japan's LNG deals to France's aerospace links, nations are quietly, but decisively, pivoting. Not in headlines, not with fanfare, but with contracts, shipments, and handshakes, one by one. The map of global commerce is being redrawn. So here's the question, could your economy be next? Will your leaders recognize the shift before it's too late, or after the deals are already signed? Stay tuned, because this shakeup, it's only just beginning. Number 10. The United Kingdom. Yeah, it might sound surprising at first. Why would one of America's oldest and closest allies start shifting its trade ties across the Atlantic? But think about it. What happens when trust gives way to tension? Lately, the UK's been watching the US throw tariffs at allies with little warning, and they're doing what any strategic nation would, exploring new options. Quietly, steadily, Britain is laying down fresh trade routes with none other than Canada. And here's something most people don't realize. Some of the UK's most critical industries, like aerospace, pharmaceuticals, and high-tech machinery, depend on smooth, uninterrupted supply chains. A hiccup isn't just a hassle, it's a hazard. In fact, according to economic models, if US-Canada trade were to drop by 30%, the UK could actually benefit by gaining greater access to Canadian goods. Why? Because when the US pulls back, Canada steps up. London's not shouting this from the rooftops. There's no press blitz. But make no mistake, things are shifting behind the scenes. Deals are getting inked, logistics are being rerouted, and a new trade dynamic is quietly forming. One where Canada isn't just a backup, it's the go-to. And here's the kicker. If Britain's already moving in this direction under the radar, who else might be doing the same? Number 9, China. Now let that sink in. The world's second largest economy is starting to turn its focus away from the United States. Why does that matter? Well, here's a wake-up call. In April, for the first time ever, China bought more crude oil from Canada than from the US. That's not some random fluctuation. That's a clear shift, a pivot. And behind that quiet headline is a much bigger play. China's watching as the US fires off tariffs like warning shots, and they're not sticking around to see where the next one lands. When trade deals start to feel like ticking time bombs, stability becomes a rare and powerful asset. And right now, Canada is offering that stability. But here's the twist. This isn't just about oil. This is about influence. It's about trust. It's about shaping who gets to control the next chapter of global power. If China is ready to walk away from its biggest energy partner, what does that really tell us? And maybe the better question is, who's next? Because this isn't just an economic shift, it's a message, a symbolic move with ripple effects that could travel a lot farther and hit a lot harder than most people are ready for. Number 8, Japan. Now, most people think of Japan as rock solid, loyal, steady, always aligned with its closest allies. But what if that loyalty is starting to show cracks? With the US floating the idea of tariffs even on liquefied natural gas, Japan isn't waiting around to see how it plays out. Instead, they're quietly looking elsewhere. And guess who's stepping in at the perfect moment? Canada. Behind the scenes, a new kind of energy alliance is forming. Out in British Columbia, the massive LNG Canada project is finally approaching the finish line. And guess who's first in line for the gas? Japan. Why? Because timing matters. Geography matters. But above all, trust matters. It's faster, cheaper, and more reliable to ship natural gas from Canada's west coast than from the US Gulf. But this is about more than just logistics. Japan is hedging its bets. They've seen how quickly US policy can turn trade into a weapon, and they're not about to be left vulnerable. This isn't just energy, it's a safety net, a quiet shift in alliances. While the US pushes longtime partners away, Canada is pulling them in. One deal, one handshake, one cargo ship at a time. And if you think Japan is the only one making moves, think again. The next countries on this list, even more surprising. So stick with us, because the deeper we go, the clearer the global shift becomes. Number 7. Germany. Take a moment to really think about this. Germany, the beating heart of Europe's industry. Precision engineering, powerhouse exports, a global reputation built on reliability. So why would a country like that start shifting its trade focus away from the US? Here's the thing, it's already happening. No headlines, no big announcements, just quiet, strategic moves. Deal by deal, container by container, redirecting toward Canada. Why? Because the US isn't the dependable partner it once was. Ever since the Trump-era tariffs on European steel and aluminum, trust between Germany and the US has taken a serious hit. And even though some of those tariffs were later rolled back, the damage stuck. Now, with fresh tariff talks on the horizon in 2025, Germany's biggest manufacturers are reading the signs, and they're looking for stability. That's where Canada steps in. With access to crucial raw materials, a stable political climate, and, maybe most important of all, predictability, Canada is becoming Germany's new safe bet. Just look at the auto industry. It's already locking in long-term partnerships with Canadian suppliers for EV battery minerals. And those precision machinery firms, they're planting roots in Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal like never before. But this goes beyond trade. It's about survival. Germany's economy lives and dies by exports, and if US policy turns volatile, they need a plan B. But here's the twist. Canada isn't the backup anymore. It's becoming a central pillar of Germany's new strategy. It's quiet, it's calculated, and it's happening right now. So if Germany is already rebalancing its future toward Canada, how long before the rest of Europe follows? Stay tuned, because the next country on this list might be the biggest wild card yet. Number 6. The Netherlands. It's one of those countries that flies under the radar, but when it moves smart. Known as a global logistics powerhouse and Europe's gateway to the world, the Netherlands rarely makes noise. But right now, something big is shifting, and almost no one's talking about it. Quietly, Dutch industries are beginning to favor Canada over the United States. Sounds subtle, but it's a serious pivot. Let's break it down. For years, the Netherlands has leaned heavily on US trade, especially in tech, agriculture, and energy. But after years of unpredictable tariffs, shaky climate cooperation, and growing tensions over data security, Dutch companies are starting to ask some uncomfortable questions. Can we really count on the US? And what happens when the next wave of tariffs hits harder than the last? That's where Canada steps in. Dutch agri-tech firms are now investing in Canadian greenhouse ventures, semiconductor suppliers, quietly locking down deals with Canadian partners. Even the Port of Rotterdam is syncing operations with Halifax to build backup supply chains, just in case US Customs throws another curveball. But here's what really seals it: values. Dutch companies care deeply about sustainability, transparency, and long-term cooperation. And Canada checks all those boxes. One Dutch logistics executive even called Canada the calm port in a global storm. That says a lot. And here's the part no one's seeing. This isn't loud, it's quiet, strategic, the kind of shift you only notice after the trade routes are already redrawn. So, if a trade-savvy nation like the Netherlands is tiptoeing away from the US, what are other European exporters thinking right now? Stick around, because the next country might be the one that sets off a chain reaction. Number 5. India. Now think about this. India is the most populous country on the planet, a rising tech superpower, and one of the fastest growing economies anywhere. So why is it quietly pulling back from the United States? Here's what most people miss. While the headlines spotlight warm handshakes and summit photo ops, underneath it all, US-India trade relations have been on shaky ground for years. Remember when the US hit Indian exports with sudden tariffs and revoked key trade perks under the Generalized System of Preferences? India didn't take that lightly. They hit back with tariffs of their own. And even now, in 2025, the two countries are clinging to a fragile 90-day tariff truce, just hoping the whole thing doesn't unravel again. But here's the key. India isn't waiting to find out. It's already scouting for more reliable partners. And one country that's clearly benefiting? Canada. Why Canada? Because it offers exactly what India needs: energy, agricultural goods like lentils, cutting-edge tech collaborations, and, most importantly, a sense of stability. In just the past year, Indian imports of Canadian farm products have jumped dramatically. And Canadian clean tech firms? They're moving quickly into India's booming green energy space. But this isn't just about economics, it's strategic. India wants to reduce its over-reliance on a US trade relationship that's starting to feel more like a gamble than a partnership. Too many sudden changes, too much political friction. So this shift to Canada? It's not emotional, it's smart, intentional, and accelerating fast. Now think about what that means. If one of the world's biggest democracies no longer sees the US as its most reliable trade partner, what message does that send to the rest of the world? And trust us, the next shift we're about to show you might just flip your entire perspective on global trade. Let's keep going. Number 4. Italy. Pause for a second and picture it. Italy, the land of art, fashion, and pasta so perfect it's practically a global treasure. But beneath all that cultural magic, a quiet economic shift is underway. And it could have massive global consequences. Italy isn't just about beauty and heritage, it's also a manufacturing powerhouse, especially in machinery, auto parts, and luxury goods. And for decades, the United States has been one of its most important trade partners. But lately, that relationship is starting to feel shaky. Here's the issue. Recent US tariffs on European exports sent a shockwave through Italy's export economy. Suddenly, doing business with the US has become riskier, more expensive, and a lot less predictable. So what's Italy doing? Looking north, toward Canada. With its trade-friendly agreements, strong institutions, and political stability, Canada is becoming more than just an alternative. It's becoming a preferred partner. Italian fashion brands and auto suppliers are ramping up their presence in Canadian markets, sidestepping the volatility coming from across the Atlantic. Even Italy's powerful agribusiness sector is digging in, literally, with new investments in Canadian sustainable farming ventures. But this isn't just about selling goods. There's a deeper driver here. Italy's industries thrive on predictability, and they don't have the appetite for political whiplash. Canada's transparent policies, climate commitments, and long-term trade reliability make it feel like a much safer bet. And here's the thing. This shift isn't happening with press releases and public declarations. It's quiet, strategic, under the radar. But it's building. And by the time most people notice, Italy's trade map could already be redrawn, with the US quietly pushed to the margins. Now think about that. If a country with such deep, long-standing ties to America is already pivoting to Canada, how long before the rest of Europe does the same? Stick around because the next country on this list could flip everything you thought you knew about global trade. Number 3. Belgium. Now picture this, a small country at the heart of Europe, famous for its chocolate, beer, and beautiful medieval towns. But what a lot of people overlook is how vital Belgium is in the global trade puzzle. It's a logistics powerhouse, a gateway between European economies, and deeply reliant on exports to fuel its engine. For years, the US has been a major trade partner, but now that relationship is wobbling. Why? Because unpredictable US tariffs and constantly shifting trade policies are making Belgian companies nervous. When doing business across the Atlantic starts to feel like a gamble, with hidden costs and policy whiplash, it's hard to plan, let alone grow. So what's Belgium doing? It's looking west, But not to the US, to Canada. Canadian trade agreements and market access are becoming incredibly appealing to Belgian industries, from advanced manufacturing to pharmaceuticals. And they're not just testing the waters. Belgian firms are quietly planting deeper roots in Canadian markets, using them as a stable launchpad into North America. But this isn't just about dollars and cents. There's a deeper story. Belgium's own internal politics, split between its Flemish and Walloon regions, makes long-term stability harder to come by. So for Belgian companies trying to navigate both domestic uncertainty and international risk, Canada offers something incredibly valuable: predictability, consistency, a place to build without the fear of sudden policy shocks. Now here's the part that matters. This shift isn't loud. You're not going to see breaking news headlines about it, but it's happening. Quietly, steadily. And the ripple effects could be huge. If Belgium, a country that sits at the crossroads of European trade, is moving away from the US and leaning into Canada, what might that mean for America's role in global commerce? The answer might be unfolding right under our noses. Let's keep going, because what's coming next might surprise you even more. Number 2, South Korea. Now, step back for a moment and think about South Korea. Not just the land of K-pop and cutting-edge smartphones, but a true global economic heavyweight. We're talking massive shipyards, world-leading tech firms, and one of the most advanced manufacturing sectors on Earth. But beneath the surface, something big is shifting. And it's not getting nearly the attention it deserves. South Korea has long leaned on the United States as a primary trade partner. That relationship brought decades of stability, but lately, that trust is being tested. Tariffs have crept in, trade policies have become unpredictable, and what once felt like a solid foundation now feels shaky. And for South Korean exporters, in auto parts, electronics, steel, those ripples are turning into real shocks. Margins are thinning, supply chains are strained, and future planning, riskier than ever. So if you're a South Korean CEO looking for a safer path forward, where do you turn? More and more, the answer is Canada. And here's why. Canada isn't just a safe bet, it's becoming a strategic priority. Trade agreements are solid, the political climate is calm, and the economy is open for business. From tech partnerships in Vancouver to advanced manufacturing in Ontario, South Korean companies are doubling down. Investments are flowing, collaborations are forming. Canadian cities are turning into hubs for South Korean innovation, and not by accident. But this goes beyond just numbers. Canada offers something that's getting harder to find on the global stage: predictability, clear regulations, strong legal protections, and a multicultural, highly skilled workforce. All of that makes it easier for Korean firms, not just to invest, but to thrive. Here's the real kicker. This isn't a temporary move. South Korea's shift toward Canada isn't a plan B, it's becoming plan A. That changes the game for North American trade. If Canada becomes South Korea's go-to gateway, what does that mean for the US, for future supply chains, for the workers and industries on both sides of the Pacific? This is more than just a business pivot. It's a signal, a sign that the global economic map is being redrawn, and fast. And if you've been following this countdown, you already know. These moves are happening quietly, strategically, and right now. So if you're finding these shifts eye-opening, hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and share this with someone who needs to understand where the world is heading. Because staying informed, that's not optional anymore. Number 1, France. Now take a second and really think. What does it mean when one of the world's most powerful, influential economies starts rerouting its trade relationships quietly? No big press conferences, no media frenzy, just a slow, strategic pivot. That's exactly what France is doing right now. And trust me, it's bigger than people realize. France isn't just about wine and cheese. Its economy is a heavy hitter in luxury goods, aerospace, agriculture, and cutting-edge tech. And for years, the United States was one of its key partners. But then came the tariffs, waves of them, on everything from aircraft to Roquefort. Suddenly, the transatlantic partnership didn't feel so steady anymore. So France started looking for a safer bet. And guess where it landed? Canada. Now French winemakers are shipping more bottles to Canadian shelves where consumers are hungry for premium imports. And tariffs? Way lower. Aerospace giants are finding fertile ground for new joint ventures, drawn in by Canada's investment-friendly policies. And the French tech world? It's setting up shop in cities like Toronto and Montreal, tapping into talent and supply chains without the geopolitical headaches. But this isn't just about economics. It's about trust. France, like many forward-looking economies, values climate accountability, long-term planning, and regulatory stability. Canada checks all those boxes. The US? With its whiplash policy shifts and trade uncertainty, it's starting to look like the risky option. Here's the real takeaway. This isn't just France testing the waters. It's a calculated reset, a long-term move that could redraw the lines of global trade. And if France, arguably one of the most influential voices in Europe, is quietly prioritizing Canada over the US, you have to ask, who's next? Because the final country on this list, it might be the biggest domino of them all. Stay locked in.